friend.
Welcome to Heavy Metal
History.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Heavy Metal History Podcast. This week's episode is with Argyris, the guitar player and vocalist from the black metal band Sicarius. I was super stoked to get him on the podcast. Their album was like in my top 10 of the year for last year. If you're into black metal, if you're into fucking angry ass insane music, you need to check out their album Serenade of Slitting Throats. It's been out since October. It's on M Theory Audio. So I got Argyris to come on and talk about that record, what the band's up to in the future, and just kind of like the black metal and American black metal scene as a whole. It was a really cool conversation. I hope you guys dig it, and I hope you'll check the band out. Again, I don't know what number this one's going to be because we've recorded so many episodes way ahead of time just to get stuff out, and we've kind of been banking them just so we can be a little more consistent. With that being said, we have a site revamp. Any episode that we post, any review that we do, you guys can leave comments on. We'd love to hear back from you guys, what you think of the episodes, what you think about us, or if you want us to add things, take away things, whatever. We're open. That's another way you can interact with us. So with that being said, enjoy this week's episode. Argyris from the band Alright guys, welcome to this episode of the Heavy Metal History Podcast. I'm your host, Dustin, and my guest on this episode today is Argyris, who is the guitar player and vocalist from the band Sicarius. So thank you for joining me today, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I guess, kind of right off the bat, I know I already introduced you and everything, but kind of, if you can, give our listeners like a little bit of rundown about the band if they're not familiar with you guys.
Pretty much we're a U.S. black metal band. We're, I guess, headquartered in Southern California. I'm actually more than likely going to be moving to Tennessee in August. But we'll continue. We'll be doing everything as business as usual. Nothing's going to change. And we started in 2014, and that's pretty much it, really.
Yeah, so you guys just put out your first full length a little bit later in the year last year, correct?
Yeah. It released October 13th, I think, last year.
October, that sounds about right. Cool. So we're going to talk about that record in a minute, but before that, we always kind of like to talk about your influences, not only as like a guitar player, but kind of what got you into metal and what kind of, I guess I would assume, eventually got you into black metal, because I feel like playing black metal, you kind of have to really be into black metal too. So what are like some of the first couple records that really like you remember starting you down into heavy metal?
It's actually a funny story. I've always really been into, ever since I was a kid, I've always been into metal, but I guess I never really understood what it was. Mm-hmm. My parents didn't listen to it. Like I was raised on like Motown and 80s music and Rolling Stones, blues music, because I'm from Houston, Texas, and there's a ton of blues music out there. And but like I remember playing like Mega Man X on the fucking Super Nintendo, and I remember just thinking like, oh, fuck man, this music's really cool, like I wonder what it is. And I was in Greece, that's where my family's from. I was in Greece, and my cousin Kostas, I crashed at his house for the night. I think I was like 8 years old maybe. Mm-hmm. And we were in his room, and he had all these Iron Maiden posters just all over his room, and I was like, what the fuck this is crazy. Because I mean, when you're a little kid and you see Eddie, like the Seventh Son record cover, he's got like his heart like in his hand and shit.
Yeah,
and you're just I thought it was like the coolest thing ever. And give me 2 seconds real quick. You're gonna have to edit this out. Somebody's ringing the doorbell.
Not a problem, dude. Take your time.
2 seconds.
Yep.
Okay, I'm back. Thanks.
Cool.
Yeah, where were we? Yeah, so I just remember seeing these posters, and I was like, dude, what is this? He's like, bro, it's Iron Maiden. And I'm like, I don't fucking know what that is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so we went downstairs to his basement, and he had like the entire collection. So I'm 8 years old, I'm 31. I don't really remember what the year was, but he had like all the cassettes in like this box collection.
Wow.
And we just sat there and we were listening to all of it. And I remember just thinking Power Slave was like the coolest album on the planet. And that really just, it went down from there. And then I discovered Slayer. And I think from there I was just like concrete, diehard metalhead. So I think that's kind of where it stemmed from. But definitely, you know, Power Slave is one. Seventh Son is definitely one from Iron Maiden. Judas Priest, dude, like Painkiller. Like I still to this day just blast Painkiller all the time.
Yeah, that's a timeless album, man.
Absolutely.
There's just something about it, like even though it's like kind of a cliche album to say that's, you know, their best, but man, it's got like hit after hit on it.
It is their best. Like I don't care how cliche it is. Like Between the Hammer and the Anvil is just a fuck yeah. Banger,
dude.
So yeah, I'd say that's where it like started from. And then in high school, I kind of went through the typical I guess American kid metalhead discovery phase, and is like melodic death metal was probably the next thing. You know, Old In Flames, like the Jester Race and Horacle, and then you know, At the Gates, Old Soilwork, stuff like that. And then what actually got me into black metal, it's kind of funny. I had no clue what the fuck black metal was at the time. I was really young, and I saw like a interview with Dimmu Borgir.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting here thinking, like, holy fuck, like these dudes got like spike gauntlets out the ass. Then I think it was for the what's the album? It's like Puritanic. What is it?
Puritanical Human Misanthropy. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was for that record.
Excellent album.
I remember seeing like tits on the cover and thinking that was like the coolest thing ever. And so I bought that album, and dude, like what's the Blessings Upon the Throne and Tyranny. It just kicks off, like, and I was just like, fuck, man. And then from there, I started just kind of doing my own homework. I was just hungry for it. And I've listened to all forms of genres of heavy metal, but black metal has always been the one that I could just never get enough info. Yeah. Like I was always so fascinated by it that I was just doing my own homework. And I'm still to this day one of those guys where if somebody from like Taiwan or something, well, like they'll send me a private message, be like, hey, check out my band. I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah, I'll just listen to it. And I actually had a buddy of mine, because so I'm from like super redneck Texas, and this guy knew that I liked like really heavy stuff, and I guess he bought an album because he thought the logo looked cool and the artwork looked cool. And he's like, this thing sounds like shit. And he's like, you want it? I was like, yeah. And I listened to it, and it was Emperors in the Night Side Eclipse. And I think I was like 10 or 11. I don't remember how old I was. I was like freshman in high school. So probably like 14 actually. And I just remember thinking like, fuck, dude, like my parents are going to like freak out if they hear this. Let me go ahead and put this under the bed for a bit. And I'd say that to this day is probably my all-time favorite record, because that record right there was really what pushed me over the edge in terms of like looking for black metal. And then Bathory was probably next. I'm like a massive Bathory fan. You know, Mayhem, all that stuff. But also being from Texas, there's so many fucking Texan bands that really like you were proud to be from that region. Right off the bat, dude, Absu is one of my all-time favorite bands, and they're from Texas. Averse Saphira, Gates of Enoch, shit like that. And so a lot of my influences do come from these Texas bands as well.
Yeah, that's man, you went into something crazy I found out about Absu recently. Their guitar player, I believe, is the manager for the comedian Jim Jeffries now.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, he was on a podcast with him recently, and he's like, come on here, tell us about your band. And he was like, oh, well, I was a guitar player in the band Absu, and, you know, now I'm your tour manager. And I was like, whoa, that's fucking like small world stuff right there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think black metal is one of those things that, especially when you're younger and you first hear it, it catches you so off guard because you're not prepared for how it's going to sound. And I think for me, for sure, Dimmu Borgir was one of the first black metal bands that I got into. But I didn't get into them until Death Cult Armageddon had come out because I was just in high school, I believe, around that time.
Right.
So like 2003-ish, 2004. But yeah, it was kind of the same thing where you kind of had to do your homework with a lot of black metal because it not being primarily from America, trying to figure out where all these bands are from, it was a lot harder back in the day because I'm only about a year younger than you. So we're kind of in that same generation where it was a lot harder to get music. You had to go to the CD store. You had to go to an FYE, Best Buy, whatever, to get CDs. And nowadays,
dude, I just had this conversation like 2 days ago. So one of my best friends, his name's Mike Pardee. He was a guitar player of Possess since like 2013. Mm-hmm. He is also one of the founding members of a black metal band from LA called Ritual. Okay. And he was also in a like black and death metal band called Draconis. And he recently left Possess and he moved. He's not really doing metal anymore. He's being like a dad. But I was talking to him about this, and I think he got kind of not upset with me, but upset with somebody that we know. They were saying like how the old timers, the old guard had it easier because, I don't know how he worded it, but like he got kind of upset. He was like, no, fuck you, dude. You guys have it easier because it's like at your fingertips. I'm like, that's true. However, it's so oversaturated that nobody gives a shit. Yes. Like nobody cares. Like music's everywhere. Like, our album probably, as great of a response as it got, which I'm super appreciative of. I mean, a lifespan of a record now is probably 2-3 months, and that's about it. And it's because there's so much shit coming out, and anybody can start a band, and anybody can have a fucking Facebook page and all that stuff, and nobody cares. Whereas back then, yeah, you were the outsider. Yeah, it was harder to find the stuff, but you were hungrier, and the rewards completely outweighed the effort involved. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of a catch-22 with both situations because
exactly, yeah,
you are right. The shelf life of things tends to go pretty quick these days. I mean, I'm still catching up on music that came out from last year, and it's just like, man, how did I miss all this stuff? And it's like, well, there's so much of it coming out, can't possibly keep up with everything. And yeah, I mean, I can't imagine being like in the 80s and just finding those gems of, like a Bathory CD or an Emperor tape. I guess it would have been tape back then, and just like getting a hold of that, Dude,
I remember it was like 2005, and it was before MySpace was even like really a thing. Mm-hmm. And one of my all-time, like, I don't have like a favorite band. I have like a top probably 6 mm-hmm. favorite bands, and one of them is called the Amenta. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're from Australia.
Okay. My co-host who's usually with me, he lives in Australia, so he probably knows them.
They're sonic fucking terrorism, dude. It's like Terminator music. Like the way that it's best described, they just transcend genres, dude. Like it's kind of like a mix of like, black metal and death metal, but there's like a ton of industrial. Mm-hmm. The songwriter, he just makes like fucking just these evil apocalyptic soundscapes, and they released like 3 albums. I think they're on a hiatus right now, but they're a massive influence on my writing. Mm-hmm. And I remember when their first album came out in 2005, I couldn't find it anywhere. Like I would go to record stores and they were like, well, we don't even have a means of getting it. Whoa. And I had a friend like on the internet, I guess. Like I'd never met the guy in my life, but he lived up in like Nebraska of all places or something. And he's like, dude, I have a copy. Like, you want to buy it? I was like, yeah. And so like I envelope mailed him cash and he mailed me the fucking record. And so like I have a taste of how it used to be. And sometimes I kind of wish it was still like that, because like I said, you can find shit anywhere, and everything's fucking digital, and it's whatever. You know, I'm not gonna go too far into bitching about it.
Oh, it's all good, man. I mean, it's a good discourse to have, because I think a lot of people tend to get too wrapped up in, you know, what music is coming out, that they kind of forget about stuff like that. So it's always good to bring it up. You know, the times are always going to keep changing. Technology is going to keep like moving forward with stuff like that. It's just seeing how bands adapt to it, which is
for real. Yeah.
The I guess good part. I don't know. It's 50-50. So one thing I'm curious about, especially being an American black metal band, which is a rarity in itself. One thing I've always kind of wondered is how much of, like, maybe not necessarily for you guys, but just kind of your opinion of this, how much of like the Norwegian scene and all of the stuff that, you know, they're kind of infamous for, do you think it's carried over to like the American scene, even though they have nothing to do with that whatsoever?
Are you talking about influence, or are you talking about, like, what do you mean? Specific?
Well, just like the infamy of, like, you know, when people think black metal, they typically think of like the church burnings, the mayhem bullshit, you know, all the horrible shit that the Dissection dude did, like that kind of stuff. Do you think Americans like focus on that stuff too much over the music, or do they kind of like do a little bit of both?
I feel like nowadays the general conception of perception of black metal, a lot of people think it's like almost edgelord, I guess. Like, the people who don't understand it think it's like this basement dweller shit. And and for the most part, some of them are right, you know. For me personally, it's kind of a fine line to walk on, because you do have a lot of people that, you know, they're in the scene, or they write black metal, and there's not really a substance behind it. In my opinion, I've had this discussion, several people. I feel like there does have to be a certain aesthetic, I guess, in terms of like, it's hard to describe, but it kind of has to do somewhat with like the occult, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, not necessarily Satanism. None of us are Satanists. That's a conversation for another time. But a lot of our subject matter touches upon like death worship and like death gods and you know, clandestine warfare, espionage, you know, murder worship, death cults, stuff like that. And I've always been fascinated by the ugly side of like ancient cultures, and the ugly side of humanity, and the shit you don't even hear about. And I think that's kind of like what we like to touch up on, because one thing that I always kind of wanted to do in Sicarius was I always wanted to kind of stand on our own. Like, I didn't want to be your typical devil worshiper or Watain clone, you know what I mean? Like, I always wanted to kind of do things the way that we do it. And I honestly kind of feel like that kind of goes in our favor, because without sounding cocky, I feel like it does bring something a little bit different to what people kind of expect. So, I mean, to answer your question, I guess, in terms of like the Norwegian scene, Lords of Chaos bullshit stuff, like, I'm actually friends with Charles from Mayhem, and you know, when they come into town, I hang out with him and stuff, and he kind of tells me, you know, a lot of these people are like far beyond that, you know, like it happened fucking like 20 years ago,
long time,
more than that. So if people still associate black metal with the tabloid infamy, and not necessarily like the musical aspect or like the message behind it, and I mean, those are the wrong people anyway. They probably don't really give a fuck about it. They probably look at it as a trend.
Yeah, and that's something I've always like kind of been bothered with, is that like they're not focusing on the music enough, which is kind of what I was getting at, is they're just focusing on all the bullshit of it and not like listening to the music, or, you know, what the band's maybe not when they were younger, like trying to like get through with their lyrics, but yeah, it always seemed really unfortunate to me that a lot of bands get pigeonholed in that like Satan worshiping, church burning kind of umbrella.
You know, and I don't personally, you know, if there's plenty of our peers and a lot of people that we look up to, you know, they're Satanists, and that's completely fine.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I've always said this because like I feel like a lot of weak individuals have kind of started trickling down into the genre, and I understand why a lot of elitists get pissed off. I actually do. It's because you got these people that they go on stage and they write about evil shit, but then they get mad if you and your buddies joke about stuff. And it's like, well, stop being fucking sensitive. This isn't for you then. Black metal has always been a very strong, opinionated genre, and that's kind of something that you got to get over. You know, a lot of social justice warriors like to attack it and they go on witch hunts, and it's like, well, what the fuck did you expect? Like, are you new here? Like, it's always been like this.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the things is like, as much as death metal like has their kind of like I don't know, shtick, I guess you can call it, black metal's always been pretty extreme right from the get-go. I feel like death metal had to kind of work its way up to that like feeling, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting to me because, you know, off the top of my head, I can name like 2, maybe 3 other American black metal bands, and they don't sound anything remotely like you guys, nor do they even really truly sound like black metal bands, like typically what I think of, you know, when I say black metal.
I mean, there's a lot. You just kind of got to like pick up the rocks, you know what I mean? There's a lot out there in the United States. I feel like it's a movement that it's growing pretty strong, but it chooses to kind of stay outside of the limelight for reasons like, you know, the Lords of Chaos movies coming out, and fuck me dead, dude. It's a shitstorm on the internet. And there's amazing bands out there right now. Like, dude, Uwada from Portland. They're conquering the world right now, dude. They're touring Europe. They're doing Mexico, South America. They just did a South America run. They supported Emperor. I can't remember what European festival is, one of the big Euro runs. What other bands? Serpentine, I think is what they're called.
The only other one, I'm pretty sure they're from like Colorado. I think they're called Bestia Arcana.
Yeah.
That band's pretty
there's
sick.
also Panopticon from Kentucky. There's Leviathan, obviously, Noctistium, Krieg, Imperial Triumphant from New York.
Oh, I forgot about those guys.
Black Anvil from New York. Cult of Azazel from Florida. You've got Secrets She Kept from North Carolina. There's Wormreich. I think they're from either Alabama or Georgia, or I don't know, whatever. But I mean, they're all like, black metal's all over the place. It's one of those genres that it's been kind of kept pretty under wraps, I guess.
Yeah, and I can kind of see why, because like as like, I guess like the only way I kind of think of it, and if I'm wrong, please tell me, but like it kind of feels like a lot of people look down on American bands playing that genre of music in a way. No,
you're correct. You hear about that shit all the time. It's stupid.
And I don't.
It's dumb. It's dumb as fuck. Like we had some guy comment on our page, or I can't remember, some publication put out one of our videos like as promotion for the new album, and the guy was all like, "Oh, an American band playing black metal, that's rich. Like, the Norwegians did it best." I'm like, shut the fuck up, bro. I was like, there's amazing bands from Greece. There's amazing bands from England. Like, stop. Like, just stop. I feel like the territory only has so much. Because I get asked that fucking question all the time. It's like, well, you know, can you explain to me how, you know, you're a black metal band from California? I'm like, well, what's there to explain? Like,
yeah, seriously, listen to the music.
Well, not only that, I feel like our music does kind of portray a little bit of like the frustration that is involved living out here. I do believe that your your environment does play a big significant role in like how you process your music, how you deliver it and stuff. And I think being in perpetual summer, because we're out in like the Inland Empire, it's super desert, super arid, it's hot all the fucking time. And I feel like that really bled into the album, because the album's very sweltering, it's very pummeling, it's a lot of power behind it. And we're not from the fucking northern lands, you know what I mean? So it's not frostbitten and cold sounding, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I would completely agree with that sentiment. Like it's the opposite of that feeling. It doesn't feel like you want to listen to it on a cold day. It's like you're going to listen to it when it's warm and not necessarily nice out, but like, a certain temperature where you're just like, on like a hot day.
I just wanted to write fucking violent music, dude. And that from the beginning, when I met the bass player, me and him started this, and I already kind of had some of the EP hashed out a little bit. He played a huge role in the direction that we wanted to take it from there. And we had two main, I guess, missions when we started this. One, I want to write music that I want to listen to, because I feel like a lot of the European bands aren't coming to America as much. And I wanted to kind of pick up that role. I wanted to write music that I like listening to, essentially. And another one was I just wanted to write uncompromising, just fucking heavy, crushing black metal music. And I mean, those were the two big key points when we started this.
Yeah, and I think you guys accomplished that, in my opinion, like beyond. Fuck, how did I find out about it? I think Invincible Oranges did a write-up of when you guys released a single, and I was like, oh shit, yep. I cannot wait for this to come out. Like, just based off that one song, I was sold. So,
thank you. Yeah, I'm proud of that song. It's a cool one.
Oh man, there's so many good tracks on that record. But yeah, I think the day it came out, I just bought it and digitally bought it, and did what I could to help get the word out there. I definitely let people know on like our podcast when we were talking about like new releases and stuff to check it out. So
yeah, and it was funny too, because I'm one of the people that runs like our Facebook page, and I never once saw anything from you guys in terms of. I'm not saying you didn't. I'm saying that Facebook never notified me.
Oh,
and then I got I was at the gym in Tennessee. Like a couple weeks ago, I think, and you guys did your like albums that you like, the albums of the year and the albums that didn't really do anything for you.
Yeah,
you tagged us, and I'm like, well, fuck, I gotta listen to this because I want to know if we were one of those albums that they didn't want to listen to. And you guys had some killer things to say about it, and I was really appreciative of it. I thought that was really cool.
Oh yeah, well, thank you for listening to that, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm really passionate about music. I want to get the word out there about whatever I can. That's kind of why I do this. So actually, speaking of that, let's actually talk about that record. How and when did like the writing process for the record kind of start? Like, because I know you guys did the EP in like 2014, 2015, right?
We were the process of the EP kind of took a while, because musicians in our immediate area are fairly scarce, and we're literally the only black metal band in the 3 cities that we're like located in. And so it was me and the bass player. It's funny because I was a bouncer at a bar, and he showed up and he was wearing an Emperor t-shirt.
Nice.
And I have an Emperor tattoo in my arm, and I was like, dude. And we started talking. I found out he played bass. I was a guitar player, and he always wanted to start something, so we did. And it was me and him for a while. And then I'd say probably 6 months after we started was when we got the other guitar player in. And then that was it for like a year. We didn't have a vocalist. We didn't have our drummer. And we used to do like for demos, we used to go to shows, and we'd have these raw as fuck, like directly digitally like recorded into the interface of a fucking computer. It sounded like shit. and it was on our phones, and we didn't have like a metronome or drums or vocals. It was literally just the guitars, and we would go to like shows, like bigger shows like Behemoth and stuff, and you're waiting in line to get in, and we just start talking to people, and I'd be like, yo, and I check this out, and I'd like push my phone against their ear, and they're like, oh, holy fuck, this is sick. And I think that's like how we started getting our quote unquote demo out. And then probably a year later, we I don't know how the fuck it happened, it just fell in our lap. We got our drummer, and he recorded the whole EP. And back then we were using 7 strings, and the first song off this recent album that I wrote was The Beast in Your Heart, and that one's on a 7 string. And I wrote that probably in 2006 to end of 2015, because we played it live at a couple of shows just for shits and giggles. And then we ended up changing to 6-string guitars. We tuned a little higher. And then, so like that song, I think that song's particularly heavy because it's tuned lower. And it was back, like, that was kind of like back when we were still in that mindset of the Scorch the Earth EP. And then I just started kind of writing the songs, and Medahim, he wrote I think 2 songs. Carnage wrote a song. I teamed up with the drummer because our drummer, he likes to play very intricate music. He's very well versed when it comes to drums. He doesn't want to just blast all the time. So I was like, dude, like, come up with a drum beat that you really, really want to do, write it out, and I'll work the riffs around it. And that's how Torture Trials came out.
Yeah, that was another thing I noticed about this record. Is it's like it's not all blast beats. There's a lot of intricacies with like the drumming, and it changes it up enough to where everything fits really, really well on this record. Like I don't know how long it took you guys to write everything, but it feels like you guys took your time writing everything. Like there's nothing that really feels rushed here to me.
I think, let's see. I think all in all, it was probably about a year, like on and off. Because usually how I write, I like to write like roller coasters, essentially. Mm-hmm. So I'll come up with a riff, and I'll just kind of save it, and I'll sit on it for a bit. And then I'll come up with like another riff like a few weeks later or a month later. And then I'll just change the key to fit the ones that I had. And it's just weird, dude, like how it all comes together. But I feel like looking back on it, I feel like we kind of wrote it pretty fast. Cause I mean, it was only like a year, and we were ready to go. Like our pre-production was pretty finished. And when we were talking to Mick at the studio, was around November timeframe. And we already had our scratch tracks ready to go to send to him for comparisons. And then we started recording the album last January. So, I mean, I feel like it went by pretty fast. We're not really idle. Like I'm always like, I mean, fuck, dude. Like, I don't know if I'm supposed to say anything, but I'm already like 7 songs into the next album. So.
Hey, I mean, if you're always working, that means you're always inspired. So I don't see anything wrong with that. That's always good to have, you know?
Yeah. I'm kind of a dick when it comes to quality control though. So like if it's something that I'm like, okay, no, that doesn't fit, I'll just throw it away. I'm like, I'm not going to use it. And then like, if like, Medahim, the other guitar player, if he comes up with something, I'll be like, okay, yeah, that fits like the identity of the band, that works. Yeah, we'll do it. That's killer. And then he'll send me another one, and I'm like, that sucks. Like, throw it away. So I kind of keep it pretty rigid because I don't want to just release filler tracks. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because, I was talking to somebody about a record that came out, and I was like, man, like this record's fine and all, but it definitely feels like there are some filler tracks, and everybody else is like eating up this record left and right. And I'm just kind of like, I'm not feeling it. You know what I mean? It's yeah. I mean, everybody has a different opinion about music, and that's kind of the great thing about it. That's why, especially heavy metal, man, it's so varying opinions like everywhere with every genre. So it's always interesting to me, like hearing other people talk about music and kind of what they liked and didn't like about a certain record. And I definitely try to take in those perspectives when like listening to something like the next time around, or if somebody recommends something to me. So I definitely see that side of it where it's like you want, especially with like the kind of aggressive music that you guys have like kind of written, it's super important to keep that kind of ball rolling. It feels like you don't want to slow it down, because then it kind of takes away from the overall mood.
Yeah, I'm on board with that too. Like, I kind of put that into perspective when I'm arranging. So we'll have like just a batch of songs ready to go, and then I'll sit down and I'll just kind of be like, okay, which songs would sound good in unison? You know what I mean? Like, because I don't want to lift this chokehold off the listener. Like, I want the listener to just be fucking gasping for air the entire time. And that's like for this record, like the way that we like in the mastering phase and everything, you don't really get it on the CD. I think something happened in the distribution and like the printing, where there's cuts in between the songs, but on the tape and on the digital, a couple of songs flow like right into each other, just boom, boom, boom. And like we did that on purpose because I wanted it just to be nonstop. Like I didn't want the listener to get a break. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I think, trying to think. Yeah. I'm pretty sure mine, like it would have to have the breaks in it, but even then, like it's barely noticeable. Like you can tell the songs were meant to go into each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty relentless, man. Like you put that on, and it's just like, all right, well, this is what's happening right now.
Yeah, thanks, dude.
So it took you guys about a year to write everything, and then you got in the studio in January. How long did it take you to kind of lay everything down? Did you guys go for like, more of a live setting in terms of recording, or did you just do everything like track by track by track?
I think it was just track by track. So we went in the studio at the beginning of January of last year, and we got the drums knocked out in like 2 days. If you can even call it that. Like we'd start at noon. Mm-hmm. So from noon to 4, BZ would lay down like half the tracks on the album. And then from 4 he would leave, and I would step in and I would do all the rhythm, like just the rhythm guitars, from like 4 to midnight. And then the next day we'd come back in at noon and he'd do that. And then I'd do the same thing over. And then I think on day 3 was when I did all like any other guitars that needed to be done. And I would do my leads, my solos. And then on day 4, I think Medellin came in. He did his 2 songs. He just did all the like all the guitars on those. He did his solos on the ones that I wrote. And day 5, Carnage came in. He did all the bass tracks in a day. And then I think we spent more time, if anything, on the vocals. The vocals took the longest. I think the vocals were like a week to 2 weeks.
Wow. Yeah, that's a pretty long time.
Well, it's for one, like our work schedules, we try to work around it. And then not to mention our vocalist actually lives like far from us. He lives like probably an hour away from the rest of us. We're all of the rest of us live in like within like a 30-mile radius. And, yeah, he lives about an hour away. So he was having to come like off work to Huntington Beach. We all had to drive out to Huntington Beach because that's where the studio was.
Gotcha.
And not only that, too, you don't want to push his vocals too much. You don't want to fuck his voice up and he's out of commission for a couple of days. So we would do it. We were pretty cautious about that whole process. And then not to mention too, the 2 guest vocals. We had to work around their schedules too, so they would come in, they'd lay down their stuff, and then it was like the longest process, I'd say, was the vocals.
Okay, I guess that makes sense because the way his vocals come across in the record, it sounds like he is like just going over 100%. Like it's pretty hateful.
He's in it to win it. There's no technique. He's just going.
Something I forgot to ask earlier, that would kind of tie into this, I guess. How did you start playing guitar? Like, what got you into playing guitar, man?
Interestingly enough, I just started playing guitar. Like I picked up guitar at the beginning of 2014.
Wow.
Right when, and like I started learning how to do it by pretty much kind of writing the EP. Like I didn't know where to start. I was in the military for 10 years and then I just decided, well, fuck, like what was something I really wanted to do before I joined? And it was like, well, you always wanted to play guitar in a metal band. So I went and bought a guitar and I kind of just figured it out, I guess. I don't know. Like I'm always trying to better myself. I'm always trying to push myself. It's great having Medahim in the band because he's a fucking shredder and he's been playing guitar for probably like 15 years and I'm ultra competitive, dude. Like I'm kind of a dick when it comes to it. So like if he writes something and it's complex and I'm like, no, I'm gonna one up you, asshole. Like I'm gonna do better than that. So I think my drive is kind of what makes me push myself when it comes to playing guitar. You
must be a natural at it, man, because I would not have guessed 2014 if you didn't tell me that. You sound like you've been playing a lot longer than that.
No, 2014.
That's pretty good, dude. I'm not gonna lie. I've been playing since like 2001, and I am terrible at guitar.
I think it's one of those things too that you got to kind of find the fun in it first.
Yeah.
A lot of people, a lot of these dudes, they're like amazing guitar players. They're shredders, and they'll be the first ones to be like, dude, like the first like couple of years suck because you're just sitting there learning scales. You're doing the boring stuff. And I ran before I walked, I guess. Like I was just writing Sicarius stuff. I was trying to like cover other songs and just figuring it out on my own and watching YouTube videos. And then now is when I'm doing the boring stuff. Now is when I'm practicing scales and I'm learning theory and all that shit. But I'm interested in it now because I don't want to peak, I want to get better. So it's interesting me now because I've got all the fun shit out of the way.
Yeah. So it's like, it's more of like well, it's still fun for you, but like, it's a matter of like personally getting better on your own, like taking it more serious. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Dude, that's amazing, man. I would have had no clue. That's so cool.
Well, thank you.
So, okay, getting back to the record, once it's all done and recorded, who typically writes the lyrics? Is it you, or do you guys like kind of take turns, or is it just one person in the group?
So right now I kind of have a thing where I've been kind of driving the central themes of the records, and I kind of wanted to give it like almost like a trilogy type thing.
Okay.
So for the first 3 records, I feel like I'm going to be kind of just handling a majority of that, of the thematic, like the imagery, the lyrical content, a lot of the songs as well. And I, like on this last album, I did, let's see, it was 10 songs. One of them was an instrumental, so 9. I'd say 3 tracks. Carcass, he did the lyrics, and the other ones I did the lyrics.
Okay. So it's pretty even, well, fairly even split, and like it's not just all on one person.
No, I mean I don't mind. Like I like it because I like to kind of stay focused. I've been in bands before. I used to do vocals. Like I was just like a vocalist in like a death metal band back in Texas, and I witnessed firsthand when everybody wants to do their thing and it kind of just splinters off and like the band loses focus on the record, and I kind of want to stray away from that. So on this next album that we're writing, Medahim's actually he's written some fucking killer tracks. Like I'm super excited about the next one. It's gonna be a while until it comes out, but
yeah,
I still probably will write the majority of the lyrical content and the musical content, but I'm giving the guys a little bit more room to breathe and do kind of their own thing a little bit, add their own stuff to it. I think by album 3 is when I'm gonna kind of sit down and be like, okay, like that's kind of where I want to be at a crossroads and be like, all right, well, what are we gonna do from here, kind of thing. But for now, I have an idea and like I have a direction that I want us to go at least for the first 3 records.
That's awesome. So you have like a whole like kind of theme in mind for like the next.
Yep. It's all written out. Like I have all that shit just done. And now is a matter of just recording scratch tracks, getting them disseminated to the other guys, and then we can start building on all that.
Nice. So what would you say is kind of the themes or like how would you say point of the record, I guess, with the title and everything.
Serenade of Slitting Throats focuses on like death. There's a lot of death themes on there. Like the intro, Flatline Noxophilic, if you pay attention, the snare beat is like an EKG machine. So there's a lot of death themes. The Onyx Void, the lyrical content is talking about the like there's a lot of mentioning of ancient civilization, their interpretation of death gods and stuff like that. But I mean, we have a general theme, but I think we kind of Iron Maiden that shit. So like there's a general point to the record, but the whole album isn't necessarily about that. The like Ferox and Pedum's about like war. The title track is about assassins and murder worship and death gods and stuff. The last track, Vampire, is about like ancient vampire civilizations and shit. It's all over the map, dude, when it comes to that. But we kind of, in terms of like thematics and lyrical content, we kind of keep it pretty visceral, man. Like I like to keep it ugly and fucking uncomfortable and really just I want people to I don't know how people are nowadays. I don't really give a shit. I don't pay attention to how people approach albums, but for me, I read the lyric sheet. Like lyrical content to me is a huge thing because you've got bands where every other word is the F-bomb and it's like you sound stupid, dude.
Yeah.
And for me, I like well thought out lyrical content. So
yeah,
for me personally, if I listen to an album, I like to listen to it, like sit down, really listen to it, and read along with the lyrical content. And if somebody was to do that with ours, I want them to read it and be like, "Fuck, man, this is pretty morbid."
Yeah, I think that's kind of another thing that like really got me into metal and buying records as a whole is like being able to sit down and because sometimes it's really hard to hear what the vocalist is saying with like the growls and the screams. So you got to kind of look at the lyrics to get a handle on what they're saying. And then once you have the words in front of your face, it's like, it's clear as day after that. It's like learning a new language.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I totally get that. That's I haven't done that in a while, to be fair, but I think it's something a lot of people, you're right, don't do anymore.
And it's unfortunate, but I mean that's why we put like we're very deliberate about putting the lyrical content in the booklet. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of black metal bands don't do that anymore. Like they don't, like either they don't care or they don't like even the classic, like some of the classic albums. Like I mean, fuck, dude, De Mysteria Don Satanas from Mayhem. There was like no lyrical content in there whatsoever.
Oh, so, yeah. It wasn't until like the reissues that they put it all in there, right?
Right. So for me, I know that we do it kind of differently, but I want people who are like really into the band and they really get the message and they understand where we're coming with it. I guess our people, I want them to be able to fucking scream that shit back to us at the show.
So in terms of like not just the record and everything, was it always a decision to don the corpse paint? Like, was it like a no-brainer kind of thing? I was like, yes, we have to do this no matter what.
Interestingly enough, I was against it.
Really?
In the beginning. I was because I'm a big Goat Whore fan, and like they don't need it.
True.
You know what I mean? There's bands that they get away with it and they don't need it, and I was against it at first, but it was Carnage's idea. He's very like if there's someone who's like a black metal fucking dictionary, it's that guy, and he just lives it and breathes it. And he brought up a good point. He's like, we're a band that's all about reviving the traditions that a lot of bands kind of lost. Like a lot of modern black metal artists that come out, they don't really care about the tradition. And a lot of the guys that started it, they're not wearing the paint anymore either, because it's one of those things where it's like, well, I guess they think it's juvenile. For us, it's like going to like it's war paint, dude. Like you put it on and you're just in a completely different mindset, dude. Like you're ready to fucking crack skulls, and that's why we do it, is because it's like we want to be a band that it's like they pass the torch on to us and we carry it forward. So when he brought it up in that light, I was like, okay, yeah, we can do it.
Yeah, I was kind of glad to see that when I like looked up, more about the band after seeing the record and everything. And I was like, cool. So these guys are like kind of doing it right and just claiming it as their own. It's like, yes, we're an American black metal band, but fuck that. We're still going to uphold some traditions of like the motherland or whatever. It was awesome to see that.
The bands that inspire us, it's one of those things where, we really take that seriously. Like going back to what I was talking about earlier about the Texas bands, dude, like seeing Absu live in Texas was like it was an otherworldly experience for me. Because their drummer is the vocalist, Prescriptor is the front man too. So he's going mock fuck on the drums, and he's screaming these awesome fucking super occult lyrics, and it's like, dude, that's crazy. And bands like, dude, like a band that's huge on me, Averse Saphira, Gates of Enoch, those bands, when I was growing up, I would go see them at shows, and that really stuck with me, man. And it's kind of one of those things where I want to continue that on. It's like me kind of saying, hey, thanks for kind of putting that kind of impression on me.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can see it, man. Like there's a lot of stuff that comes across in music, like not knowing you guys personally or anything like that, but like you definitely put a vibe out there in the music, and it shows that you guys give a shit about like what you're writing and like how you present yourself, and it comes off as authentic, which is nice.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, that's just my opinion. I hope our listeners will definitely give you guys a look and listen. And I'm out of stuff, man. I feel like that's a good podcast. We usually try not to go over an hour anyways. So if there's anything else you want people to know, check out, you can plug whatever you want, man, and we'll link everything up in our show notes.
I mean, album's out, pick it up. We've got things planned coming out. Like it's been on the top of our priority list to get the fuck out of Southern California in terms of like playing shows. So we have a tour kind of in the works right now. It should be in March. We're doing Arizona Death Fest in April, I think. And then from there, yeah, like the only direction is up. Like we're going to try and get out to the East Coast as much as possible, Midwest, Texas, stuff like that. So just be on the lookout, I guess.
Cool. Well, man, thank you so much for taking the time to do this, man. I really appreciate it. And I feel like it was definitely what I was kind of looking for, to get more meat about how the record was made and everything and what you guys are about. So it was awesome.
Dude, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man.
Be excellent to each other. And party on, dudes!